We begin this morning with President Biden's second State of the Union address.
Last night, the president touted the accomplishments from his first 2 years in office and laid out his vision for the future. Now, some of the president's speech provoked strong reactions in the room. We saw multiple standing ovations, sometimes from both sides of the aisle. We also heard jeers and heckling from some Republicans, something that was unthinkable in the not-too-distant past. Here's a look at some of the highlights from his address and the Republican response delivered by Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
The story of America is a story of progress and resilience, of always moving forward, of never, ever giving up. It's a story unique among all nations. We're the only country that has emerged from every crisis we've ever entered stronger than we got into it. Look, folks, that's what we're doing again. 2 years ago, the economy was reeling. I stand here tonight after we've created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs. More jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years because of you all, because of the American people. You know, we're often told that Democrats and Republicans can't work together. But over the past 2 years, we've proved the cynics and naysayers wrong. I signed over 300 bipartisan pieces of legislation since becoming president. I ran for president to fundamentally change things, to make sure our economy works for everyone, so we can all feel that pride in what we do. So let's look at the results. We're not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination, but unemployment rate is at 3.4%, a 50-year low. We've already created, your help, 800,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs, the fastest growth in 40 years. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. So I've come to fulfill my constitutional obligation to report in the State of the Union. And here's my report. Because the soul of this nation is strong, because the backbone of this nation is strong, because the people of this nation are strong, the State of the Union is strong.
The Biden administration seems more interested in woke fantasies than the hard reality Americans face every day. Most Americans simply want to live their lives in freedom and peace. But we are under attack in a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight.
We have full team coverage of last night's State of the Union. We're going to get to NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin in just a moment. But let's begin with NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli, who is in Madison, Wisconsin, where President Biden will be traveling today. Mike, good morning to you. First of all, we heard some of the highlights there, but what are the big moments that really stood out to you?
Well, Joe, in terms of the substance of the speech, I thought some of the big takeaways, let's start with the issue that was looming literally and figuratively ahead of the speech, the Chinese spy balloon. The president alluding to that by saying that, as he showed last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will protect our country, and we did. He also referred to the coming anniversary of Russia's invasion in Ukraine, reaffirming U.S. support for that country, saying democracies have become stronger, not weaker. Autocracies like Russia and China have grown weaker, not stronger. Now, another moment, I think it was a real emotional moment that maybe didn't get the most attention last night, but something we're going to be talking a lot about, I think, over time, was his invoking the memory of Tyree Nichols and talking about the reality that for black families have to have these conversations about law enforcement in a way that white families do not. I think that was a really significant moment. But ultimately, Joe, this was first and foremost a speech about President Biden laying out his economic accomplishments. And we also, I think, heard him lay out a potential theme of his reelection campaign. Let's take a listen.
We've been sent here to finish the job, in my view, to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well.
Now, you see the Wisconsin state capitol behind me. I am in Madison, where President Biden will come later today, trying to focus especially on that economic message. He'll be at a union training facility where he'll be talking about all those types of jobs that will be created because of the infrastructure law, the new manufacturing boom here in this country, and the types of jobs that don't require a college degree.
And the words "finish the job" were spoken several times last night by the president. So often it's the drama that gets a lot of attention. The State of the Union started with a friendly tone. For example, the president congratulated Kevin McCarthy on being elected speaker, but then he did endure some heckling from Republicans on issues like Social Security. We played a little bit of that clip a moment ago. Also immigration and the border when talking about fentanyl. How did he handle those moments, and what does this say about the bipartisan efforts between the White House and the Congress right now?
Yeah, that mood in the chamber last night, I think, is the real takeaway from this speech, what most Americans will probably be talking about. There was a real House of Commons energy in the House chamber last night, reminding us of some of those debates we often see in the British Parliament. Now, it was interesting. The president did strike a theme of unity. You did see Kevin McCarthy, the new Republican speaker, standing up towards the end of the speech as Biden laid out his unity agenda, taking on fentanyl, supporting our veterans, trying to cure cancer. But White House advisors really leaning into those moments when President Biden sparred with Republicans, especially over Social Security. They really relished that moment. I think, as my former employer, the Los Angeles Times, put it on their front page this morning, the state of Joe Biden is feisty. Joe, he was also folksy. You heard him use that word, folks, as he was in his speech 21 times, according to a count from our colleague Julia Jester. There were a lot of questions, of course, about President Biden's stamina heading into a re-election campaign. I think White House advisors really think he settled some of those doubts with those exchanges last night.
He did seem to be at his strongest when he was having some of those exchanges last night. So let's talk about the Republican response. It didn't come from Congress. It came from newly elected Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was tasked with delivering the Republican response. What was her main message?
It was a really interesting speech, Joe. I think most Americans are familiar with her speaking for a president as the White House press secretary in the Trump administration, now responding to a president as the new governor of Arkansas. The first part of her speech really leaned into some of those culture wars that are spent a lot of time maybe on Fox News, but not part of the household conversation, talking about a woke agenda from President Biden, some of the culture wars, including the battle over transgender rights, for instance. But the real heart of her speech was to focus on really what she thinks has been economic failings for the president. She also, I think, notably talked about a generational contrast, not just with President Biden, noting she's half his age, but calling for a new generation of Republican leaders. An interesting reference to her former boss, perhaps.
Mike Memoli, thank you very much.
Let's bring in NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin for more on this. Julie, good morning. So one topic the president touched on during his speech last night was police-involved violence. We heard Mike talk about this a bit, and this comes, of course, in the wake of the death of Tyre Nichols at the hands of police officers. We know Nichols' parents were in the audience. What was the reaction from Democrats and everyone in the crowd?
Yeah, in many cases, this is exactly what members of the Congressional Black Caucus wanted President Biden to do when they visited with him last week. They said they wanted him to use the State of the Union stage as his bully pulpit to call for reforms. And he even surprised some Democrats in how far he went in calling for not only meaningful reforms, but also for accountabilities. He mentioned specifically for police departments, to, I should say, bipartisan applause, even Kevin McCarthy standing up behind him. I want you to take a listen to a piece of what one Democrat had to say.
I was surprised by the president's remarks and his focus on reform, focus on justice, and really his focus on centering the families that have been so deeply impacted by police violence and police brutality, and really centering this discussion around reform. It's a long way from just a year ago, where it was really just about how much more money can we pile into these local departments in order to fix this issue.
And look, the parents of Tyre Nichols in the audience, his mother, so emotional during those moments in the speech. You could really feel like this was one of those moments where actually President Biden was able to bring both sides together. He praised the good cops out there. He had that moment that Mike laid out, saying that the talk that Black and brown parents have versus the ones that white parents have with their kids are very different. And he spoke to that in terms of his personal experience with his children. So I think a moving and collective moment there from President Biden.
Absolutely moving, and clearly brought people together in a crowd that is not that common to see that. And as we mentioned, Biden did take some jabs at Republicans in sort of a different tone, leading to heckling by some members of the GOP. Can you explain to us what exactly provoked that response?
Oh, yeah. I actually want you to take a listen to what President Biden had to say, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. And let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
Look, Zinkley, that copy was actually referring to Senator Rick Scott's proposal from a few years ago. He proposed this idea to sunset Medicare and Social Security over the next 5 years, largely rejected by Republican leadership in the Senate, and of course by Speaker McCarthy sitting right behind him, especially when it comes to when it has to do with these debt limit conversations, because that's one of those talking points Democrats are continuing to push forward, while Republicans are trying to say, hold on, we are taking Social Security and Medicare off the table in these spending cut negotiations. And you could see from the Biden's little moment there quipping that, yeah, he agrees with Republicans when they were all booing against that idea. So you could see how he played against that moment and those large boos and the rift at that moment of his speech.
Important analysis from Washington. Julie Sirkin, thank you.
Rescue teams in Turkey and Syria are racing to find more survivors after Monday's earthquakes leveled thousands of buildings and left many sleeping out in the freezing cold for a second night in a row. The death toll in both countries has now surpassed 10,000. Many more are injured and homeless. Turkey's president is visiting quake-hit areas today after announcing a 3-month state of emergency in 10 provinces. Amid the carnage, heroic scenes are emerging from the rubble in Syria. This dramatic footage from the White Helmet shows an entire family being pulled out alive, one by one, from beneath a demolished building. Each person who was rescued came out from the wreckage to wild celebrations from crowds that gathered, a small victory in what has been a harrowing disaster. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobiea has the latest from Turkey.
Well, we're in the neighborhood of Pazarcık, and just look at what we're seeing on block after block. This is one of many, many collapsed homes that we've come across, and you can just make out the old kitchen floor there. The kitchen is completely crumbled down onto the street. There's twisted metal, twisted piping, huge slabs of concrete. In some cases, in some areas, rescuers, volunteers are having to move that concrete by hand because there just isn't enough machinery to get it out of the way and to look for survivors. And then in some cases, you find houses like this one where we have to watch the traffic here, but there's significant damage. It's clearly unsafe, and people are just not comfortable to stay under cover right now. We spoke to one woman who said that her home looked similar to this, and she said that her son actually pulled her out of a hole in the house in order to rescue her. She said that she heard her neighbors calling for help for the first several hours after the quake hit, but no one reached this area. No one reached her home until today. In other cases, people say that even if their homes are still standing and they just see some cracks, like in this big building here, they're just too nervous to sleep inside. Even people who actually have managed to find hotel rooms say they feel safer outside in a car in the cold than they do inside a building right now.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much.
Now let's bring in Melinda Young for more on this. She is the UNICEF Senior Emergency Advisor in Syria. Melinda, thank you for joining us this morning. So I understand you're in your office just over the border in hard-hit Gaziantep, Turkey. First of all, how are you doing? Are you safe? And what are you seeing on the ground?
Yeah, so I'm in Gaziantep in southern Turkey, but coordinate UNICEF's response into Syria, particularly northern Syria, because we're near the border here. Yeah, I was in Gaziantep in a 10th floor hotel room, 4:15 a.m. and the earthquake struck. All asleep, and it was just terrifying. I've worked in disasters for the last 20 years, but the magnitude and the force of that that quake and how long it was, people were screaming in the corridors, just grabbing kids outside of hotel rooms, family dragging them down those 10 floors in order to get outside as fast as possible, and then just out in the snow, because it's been snowing quite heavily over the last week. I mean, the enormous sense of fear. So I'm now in our office. It's a safer structure. Nothing is entirely safe. There's been over 200 aftershocks. So I'm here working and working on the response, but we're also using it as an emergency shelter. We've got 120 people here and 4 cats in the office. So we haven't slept for several days. Apologies, I haven't washed in 3 days. Yeah, we still have to run outside when there are aftershocks. Fortunately, they were lessening so far. But so for UNICEF, and that's me in a much better structure. I've got power. I've got heating in here. Let alone what it is for other people, but also for in Syria, in northwest Syria, and children there, where you don't have you don't have any of that infrastructure or services to start with.
I mean, Melinda, impactful to hear you say you've been in a lot of disaster zones, but you've never seen anything quite like this. And I know international aid is arriving in Syria and Turkey, but there are limitations. Will Syria's humanitarian crisis worsen if it doesn't arrive in time, that support?
Most definitely. We need urgent assistance across all areas of Syria. So for the northwest, it's certainly impacted urgent needs in terms of, water supplies being knocked out, buildings as well, shelter, the need for food, nutrition. I mean, this is already an emergency area. So this earthquake is on top of several other crises. We've got over 10 years of conflict. In September, there's a cholera outbreak, which is the first in decades for Syria, because it's all due to the depletion of systems there. It looks like we're coming to drought. Got economic crisis that have forced many people into poverty. And in northwest Syria, the area I focus on, many families have had to displace up to 10 times over the last few years, given the conflict. So now whatever shelter they have, compromised by the earthquake, whatever little systems they have access to, now damaged.
Yeah, so many compounding issues now shaken by this earthquake. Melinda Young, thank you for joining us during this time. Stay safe.
Thank you.
And breaking news out of Britain, where Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is making his first trip to the UK since Russia's invasion began nearly a year ago. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter is outside Downing Street in London and joins us with the latest. Molly, earlier this morning, I heard you shouting a few questions live on MSNBC to President Zelenskyy. What can you tell us about this visit and what he hopes to accomplish?
Joe Zinkley, good morning to you. That's right. It is his first visit to the UK since the war started. His second, of course, that we are aware of outside of Ukraine since the war started. Of course, he has been to Washington, D.C. But we did see, as you say, Joe, we actually, MSNBC caught him leaving. We got to watch him arrive with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. They gave a wave to the cameras, waved to the crowd, and walked in for a very short meeting. Lots of cheering inside the Prime Minister's residence. And then they came outside, just President Zelenskyy came outside. He does have a packed day here in the UK. We expect him to address the Houses of Parliament, both houses. Of course, he has done that by a video link. This, of course, will be in person. And we also know that he will, at some point, we don't have timings confirmed for this, meet with King Charles. This is a big deal, though. The UK is the second largest weapons provider to Ukraine after the US. The other thing the UK is announcing today with President Zelenskyy's visit is they will start training fighter pilots. This is a big deal because one of the things Ukraine, you guys, has been asking for are fighter jets from Western allies. And what the UK statement says is they will start training these pilots to ensure Ukraine can defend its skies well into the future. The training will ensure pilots are able to fly sophisticated NATO standard fighter jets in the future. Now, not clear if that is a hint or any kind of, future prediction of Britain's change in stance on the jets, but that is a very big deal. We also know the UK has been training Ukrainian troops up to 10,000, we understand, including soldiers who arrived just last week to operate the Challenger tanks. So we understand possibly President Zelenskyy may be at least thinking those troops, saying hi to those troops, and certainly grateful for that training.
Molly, we know President Zelenskyy had a great relationship with the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Reminder, that was 2 prime ministers ago. How is he getting along with UK's new Prime Minister?
Yeah, So far, so good. I think what we have heard from Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is that this is a relationship that he is investing in. This is certainly, and what we are seeing today and what they are announcing today is an investment for the future. In the statement that we received today announcing this surprise visit, of course, Joe, because of security, we just got the announcement a couple of hours before we saw President Zelenskyy actually show up here. In that message, the Prime Minister says this underlines our commitment to not just provide military equipment for the short term, but a long-term pledge to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine for years to come. And guys, before I let you go, I also want to just add the other thing that was announced today, and we did see the Foreign Secretary James Cleverly walk into number 10 as well. What we heard today is that the UK is announcing new sanctions targeting at least 6 entities providing military equipment, such as drones for Russia's invasion to Ukraine, as well as 8 Russian individuals and 1 entity connected to nefarious financial networks that help maintain wealth and power amongst Kremlin elites. So the UK announcing not only really important training for Ukrainian troops, but also really stepping up their tough sanctions on Russia today. Joe.
A reminder that a year into the sanctions are still being rolled out. Molly Hunter, Molly, thank you so much. Time for a check on your morning news now. Weather.
Angie Lastman has the forecast for your neck of the woods. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, guys. We're going to start in the Northeast, where early this morning could be some travel issues because we do have some dense fog that we're dealing with. Any moisture out there left over, leading to potentially black ice stretching from places like New York up into Maine. So just be mindful of that for the early morning hours. We transition down to the south, where it will once again be busy. You see why. We have plenty of moisture working in from the Dallas area into Hot Springs up into Cape Girardeau. Lots of moisture that will track through the day today with the potential for some flooding. But also we could see some of these storms gain some steam, intensify, and become quite active later this afternoon. Here's how the system tracks. You can see there will be a wintry mix stretching into parts of the Midwest, but it's mainly the heavy rain that we're concerned about and those stronger storms packing a punch when it comes to hail, maybe some strong winds, as well as some isolated tornadoes. And as we go into tomorrow, we will see the snow develop for parts of the Midwest and stretching into parts of the Northeast as well. We will also track some showers there. So let's start with the severe weather. Here's the bullseye of where we're exactly expecting it. You can see it's mostly centered portions of Louisiana into Arkansas, a little bit of Tennessee, a little bit of Texas, and out towards Mississippi. That's where we have the better chance of 9 million people being impacted by some of these stronger storms later in the day. Again, the winds, a couple of tornadoes not out of the question, and even some hail possible through the afternoon hours. Adding on top of that, we also have the potential for some heavy rain, and that's focused into northern portions of Arkansas and extending up. You can see that those are the areas where we'll expect the most rain, anywhere from 2 to 3 inches possible. But we could, of course, have locally higher amounts up to 4 inches. And that's going to be a little sticky for anyone that's going to be out on the roads. We don't want you driving through those flooded roadways or those areas that are prone to flooding. Snowfall, it's really stretched from Iowa into northern Michigan. That's where those higher amounts will be, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. But we'll get a good inch across much of that area here as we get through the day tomorrow. And how about the east? It remains warm. I know we're talking about snow, but check out the temperature in Richmond right now. 68 degrees, nearly 20 degrees above normal for today. That's the afternoon high in Charlotte of 71 degrees. Even Chicago, 43 degrees. It is not supposed to feel like this at this time, and it doesn't stop tomorrow. We'll see mid to upper 60s across much of portions of the Northeast and into Philadelphia. 57 degrees is what we'll see for our afternoon tomorrow. We'll finally start to get some of that cooler air filtering in. Not for the weekend for folks in the Northeast or along the East Coast. It'll still remain quite spring-like, but we look back into Minneapolis where mid-20s for Friday, mid-30s. Those are temperatures that are more like it, guys. That's what we expect from this time of year, but we'll take the spring-like weather. I have a feeling that the flowers are confused, the trees are confused,
birds are
along with all of us.
Yeah. I feel like the groundhog got it really wrong on the East Coast, too, by the way.
Doesn't he already?
I know.
People
Peter also has strong opinions about the groundhog.
If you want to trust a rodent, that's your business.
It's a theme. You and Bill Cairns get along really well when it comes to the rodent comments. All right, thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.